As always, before we begin today's video, I'd like to verbally thank my patrons, especially those donating $10 or more monthly, such as Alex Vanderwood, Almost Dead Again, Anatoly Volnov, Andrew Melnick, Big Time Jim, Colin Gajic, Cooper Sutton, Corbet Godwin, Cosmo Borski, Daniel Christman, Darius Fazier, David Kaiser, Duncan Bristow, Fockhead, Fralem, Jack Eisenberg, Jano, John Strange, JP De La Torre, JW, Max Binning, Mixer Rolls, Money and Muses, CeeLo, Silver Silence, Vladimir Znodholm, Wolf HD, and Young Master Pig. While I've somehow managed to avoid spoilers in this video itself, I highly recommend you stay out of the comments because I can almost guarantee that there will be spoilers there. With Fargo airing its 4th season in just 1 week, I think it's high time I do what I can to dissect what's so great about this show, at least for me. Before we do anything, I'll just say now that for brevity's sake, we're going to pretend that the Fargo film doesn't exist. It's a fine movie, but every time I mention Fargo here, I'm talking about the show. I'll admit, I'm not that big on television. My time as a smoker made me gravitate towards the shorter bursts of entertainment you can find here on YouTube, seeing as I could fit a simple 10-minute video into a smoke break without stopping everything I'm doing to sit down and watch an hour of content. However, on most days, I'd tell you that Fargo is my favorite thing ever committed to film, television or otherwise. Since I don't venture outside the realm of games often, here are some of my all-time favorite movies so that you know where I'm coming from when I recommend this show. Basically, I'm into parabolic character studies, philosophical sci-fi, black comedy, bomb-under-the-table tension, psychological horror, and social satire. Save for sci-fi, Fargo has absolutely all of those in spades. Firstly, let's talk about the most basic part of a long-form TV show, the format of long-form TV itself. While, in general, I tend to gravitate towards the shorter content on YouTube, another big reason I don't watch a lot of TV is because of just how long it is as a whole. There are plenty of examples of this, but let's start with one of my other favorite shows, one you're probably familiar with, Breaking Bad. It's a fantastic show. Fly might be my favorite episode of any show, but if I were to watch that amazing pilot again today, I would most likely be blown away by it and then never watch another episode. This is simply because I don't want to have to watch 5 whole seasons of a show to get to a satisfying ending. Breaking Bad is on the shorter end of the drama spectrum, but that's almost 50 hours of watching this one story unfold. I just plain can't do that, and I'd imagine a lot of my fellow YouTube viewers feel the same way. Hell, if Fargo followed the typical structure of a show like Breaking Bad, I'd probably again be blown away by the pilot episode and then never watch another one. You can call me ADHD or whatever, but a story is only satisfying once it's over, and familiarity breeds contempt. I just don't want to watch a 50-hour story, even if it's as good as Breaking Bad. So what does Fargo do if not one continuous story? It's an anthology. Each season takes place in a different time period with different characters, different themes, and a different story. What this means is that you can watch Season 1 of Fargo and be satisfied. There aren't any cliffhanger endings to seasons or forced extensions of character arcs or anything like that. The most you get is the occasional reference to the events of other seasons, or small side characters sitting in the protagonist chair in a different era of their life, and even that's only happened in one of the 3 seasons so far. While you'll absolutely want to watch these in order for reasons I can't disclose in a spoiler-free essay, you won't be left on the edge of your seat waiting a whole year for loose ends to be tied up. A story is only satisfying once it's over, and Fargo has already satisfied me 3 times. I get that this is a preferential thing. Some people really enjoy watching characters grow and evolve over the years of both their life and the characters, and I've definitely enjoyed that a couple of times myself. But if you find yourself agreeing with me about most shows being way too hard to get into, then Fargo should have your attention by now. There's another benefit to this anthology format. Fargo seasons are pretty short, just 10 episodes each, clocking in at about 8 hours. The result of this is that complicated stories with lots of characters are being told at a breakneck pace. So much happens in each episode that you won't be bored for a second. To showcase this, and to make fighting copyright claims a bit easier, I'll only be using footage from the first episode. Thanks to very tight pacing and plainly skillful direction, things don't really get confusing either. You always understand each character's motivation, their goals, their plans, their relationships. Unless the show is willfully eluding you with its more mysterious characters, you'll never be confused as to what's happening in spite of so much happening. I'd have to get into some big spoilers to give you a more nuanced explanation, so for now, let's just say that these directors, writers, and actors are all very skilled. In short, the anthology format gives Fargo all the appeal of a miniseries with the consistency of typical long-form TV shows. That's the whole reason that this show was even accessible to me in the first place. The barrier to entry is non-existent as someone who came in around the time Season 3 started. However, that doesn't really explain what's so fantastic about it that I would hold it up to the standards by which I judge Kubrick movies. We'll start with the literal and move more towards the abstract as we go, beginning with what's probably the most important part of a TV show to most people, the characters. With this, we're getting into very minor, very vague spoiler territory, but as an avid purist, I have to recommend you just go watch the show now. These characters are mostly all based around archetypes. The idiotic bully, the meek doormat of a husband, the cop who isn't cut out for the job, the other cop who will do anything to get to the bottom of the case. Then, however, each season has something of a wildcard character, a catalyst. The main antagonist of each season tends to be somebody that forces everyone around them to break away from their archetypical story and become something of a reflection of that antagonist. Sometimes an inverted reflection, sometimes a parallel one. The effect of this is that as each season progresses, each character gets more and more complicated in a way that sort of parallels how you get accustomed to people in the real world. They start out as a stereotype, and then they turn out to be nuanced in ways that you couldn't possibly have predicted. One character might start out as a powerful figure of authority, and end up being a scared, defenseless man who's just putting up a front of confidence to defend himself. It's difficult to talk more in depth about this without blatantly spoiling anything, so let's move on to a different type of character and segue to something that I think just about any drama needs a bit of: comic relief. Fargo, if I had to give it a genre, is a dark comedy. There's just something inherently funny about a normal, shy, plastic bag of a Minnesotan being caught up in the plans of some chaotic force of evil, be it a murderer, a mafia, or whatever. Seeing somebody react to a murder with a simple "aw geez" or an "aw heck" if things are really drastic is just plain funny, and the show is absolutely loaded with stuff like that. Like any good dark comedy, you'll be completely grabbed by how intense a moment is, but some small part in the back of your mind will just be laughing at how these characters react to the situation.
What you want me to write for cause of death?
It's self-explanatory.
Then you've got the characters whose primary function to the whole show is just comic relief. My favorite example being these two idiotic kids. Both of them are completely hopeless, so when you see the younger one just nervously echoing everything that the older one says, it's pretty hard not to smile.
Dad thinks she had big titties. Yeah, I know what rack means. Yeah, Fury! Ow! Yeah, Dad, ow!
This is, in my opinion, the best way to do a running joke. A show like Archer, as much as I love it, tends to have too many running jokes for its own good, to the point where sometimes it feels like the main role of the protagonists is just to deliver the jokes we've heard before. Having small, insignificant side characters host the jokes is perfect for me, because it means that the more important characters can serve their purpose to the story without having to drop a punchline every few minutes, and it means that I can get excited whenever I see one of these joke characters. Every time the show shows us a member of the Hess family, I just look forward to seeing something with these two idiots, knowing it's going to be funny. Then you've got characters that show up for one scene, make you laugh, and then never show up again. Not only do these characters just add a bit of flavor to the world, but they give us a chance to show how our more important characters react to an extreme situation on the opposite side of the spectrum, usually confused and awkwardly trying to act like everything these weirder characters do is totally on the level. What this all leads to is a cast of characters that's extremely memorable, either because they're so unique or because we know them so well by the end. I mean, this random kid being chewed out for his flawed logic is way more memorable to me than, say, Gale from Breaking Bad. And of course the same could be said for the actually important characters. Something like True Detective can get so heavy that it just puts me in a bad mood. Meanwhile, Fargo can show me insane body counts and graphic violence and just brighten my mood with its subtle quirkiness. It's just a good time, even as some incredibly messed up stuff happens. Next up, let's talk about the true crime aspect of the show. The fact that all of these seasons are based on true stories just makes for some incredibly well thought out plots. This show would just plain not work if there were any plot holes. If the crime progression doesn't make sense, the show has no stakes, and if the show has no stakes, there's no reason to get invested. Seeing as every major plot point in the show actually happened, it's just so gripping. Not only does it assure you that there won't be any plot holes, but the way that each episode opens up with a reminder that it's all real makes some of the crazier plot points even more intense. When you're recreating crimes that are this intricate and this interesting, you've just got quality drama guaranteed. However, there's something that always annoyed me about things that are based on a true story. Real life usually doesn't have a very nuanced artistic message. While the specifics of these crimes are spot on, it's not like history remembers all of the random conversations and monologues, so the show is able to take plenty of artistic liberties and sort of give deeper meaning to all of these events, and the deeper meanings they portray are what turn Fargo from a damn good show to a damn good work of art. And this is also where I can wrap around to the beginning of this essay. I'll save the actual analyses for a video where I'm going into spoilers. I've already done an analysis of Season 1, and I'm planning analyses of the other seasons, but for now, let's start off with a look at another thing that generally bothers me about long-form TV. I hate to keep ripping on Breaking Bad because it's such a fantastic show, but I think most people would agree that it kind of got its message across by season 2. Hell, some might even say that it got its message across in the first episode. Artistically, it made the point it was trying to make very quickly. It only takes a little bit of time to understand the moral of the story. However, the show runs for much longer than that, and so to someone like me who lives for analyzing art, there isn't really much to keep me coming back once I've gotten the show's artistic intent figured out to my satisfaction. Fargo, however, much like the original Metal Gear Solid trilogy, is going for a totally different message with each season. Sure, they tie into each other with a little smidge of meta-commentary here and there, but each season acts as both its own story and its own piece of art, whereas you wouldn't really say the same for most other shows. I recently rewatched all of Season 2, both in preparation for Season 4 and to get notes together for another poetic analysis, and I was really expecting to piggyback off of what I said in my video on the first season. I was trying to view it solely as an extension of the themes established there, but for me, that turned out to just be the wrong way to look at things. In order to get anywhere with my analysis, I had to look at Season 2 as its own thing. I'll admit, I wasn't that excited for Season 4 before realizing this. I knew it would be fantastic, but I also thought that it would just be more of the same from an artistic perspective. Just another example of a show continuing production well after it had made its point, but I was completely wrong there. Season 2 and 3 of Fargo are both going for entirely different points artistically. But again, like Metal Gear, they're points that are ever so slightly linked to each other. These stories do have their connections, and the result of this is that as I rewatch a season, I'm building two analyses. An analysis of the individual season and an analysis of the show as a whole, both with different but related theses. Well, take it from me, at this point I basically analyze art for a living, and seeing this much complication just from categorizing my analyses of a subject makes me a very happy writer. I live for the thrill of filling journals with notes about particular lines and the placement of duck statues in a diner, and tying it all together to form a tangible, unified theory of whatever I'm talking about that week. And if that's at all relatable to you, whether you're analyzing this stuff mentally, in conversation, or on paper as I do, Fargo will keep you incredibly happy. The effect of all of this is that no matter how bored you get by watching the same characters for too long, how much you hesitate to get into a show that's been running for years and still isn't over, how much you hate over-sequelizing, how much investment you lose once you've got a piece's artistic message figured out, or how rarely you like long-form TV shows, from the most basic and literal to the most complex and abstract, Fargo will keep you wanting more.
Yes.